Today, joining us on the yellow sofa is Genevieve Tawiah, physiotherapist, spent the last 10 years working with performers in music and the West End, with shows such as Wicked, Warhorse and Harry Potter. She also does physio to support the Strictly Come Dancing. She has a deep passion for helping people understand their bodies. Let's dive in. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to be here. I can't believe I'm in Wales. This is great.
First time down to South Wales?
First time down to South Wales. Yeah.
Oh.
It's nice to be here after all these years.
How did you find out about us or like welcome and...
It was around 2020, 2021. I used to use SPORTTAPE anyway, just I think literally from a Google, and I'd use SPORTTAPE and RockTape, just taping in clinic. But then when lockdown happened and there was a lot happening in the Black community and people were kind of just speaking out on things that mattered to them, I decided I wanted to see, well, a big thing that had happened of recent was one of my patients had an injury and she was wearing like black tape. She was asked whether she could get something that was a skin tone, and her manager was quite persistent about it to the point of where she couldn't, and she just decided to go on show without it, but she got injured. And essentially part of what I saw around that time was a lot of companies marketing like a beige shade of tape as nude, and it poses a question. And so I kind of put out a few things about it, and people were talking to me about, oh yeah, I've noticed that too, blah, 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 blah. Why did they do that? And so I emailed out a load of different taping companies, and SPORTTAPE were the first company to reply honestly. And
Do you remember who that was in the team? Was it me or was it Lucy?
I think it was you.
Oh, really? Wow.
I think it was you and one other person. I don't think we came across each other at that point. I can't remember the other name, but SPORTTAPE were really open-minded, and then we got into chats about ideas and how things could be better, and yeah.
So you said we were open-minded. What was the opposite to not being open? What was closed-minded then?
I had a really positive response in terms of, oh yes, we hadn't considered that beige shouldn't be nude. We'll consider that. Someone was really like, yeah, I'd actually like to look into marketing different colours. And then I got a reply. They had a meeting about it. Got a reply from someone else who was like, don't think this is relevant. I don't think this affects our market. But also, I don't think using the term nude is an issue for this colour of... And I was like, well, very interesting.
Right, yeah.
Interesting approach, because your colleague didn't think that. But also, I think I'd reached out not with a purpose of make the tape. It was just consider your wording. And that was all I really wanted. And you guys came back with, yeah, actually, fair point. Yeah. And a few companies were like, oh, I had one company go, it's too expensive to rename. And I was like, you're missing the point. It's not that you like it. Also, that company didn't have on their
packaging.
It wasn't on their packaging as nude.
Just on the website.
It's just on the website.
Right,
I was like, I don't know if you're justified in that answer, but fine.
Okay, wow.
We know where you stand.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Very interesting.
So your reason primarily was within the performance community, and the tape needs to remain invisible, or
not invisible.
No, but
it was just, I think the discussions that were happening at that time were, I had my patient example, but I'd also have a lot of people like, oh, have you got anything in another colour?
Oh, right.
Have you got,
requested,
like, because it would be dancers that, look, the beige tape isn't perfect for skin, but it'd be close enough to cover up or to not be seen under light. But anyone of any other shade or colour skin tone, I wouldn't have anything close, or they'd put makeup on it. And it was a big thing in the dance industry for ballet dancers who would powder their shoes, or I remember tights
powder the shoes.
Oh, yeah. So like ballet shoes, if we backdate, ballet shoes are typically like a pinky beige.
Yeah.
A lot of people
foreskin, right?
I didn't even really realise at the point, but it was made for a certain demographic background.
Yeah, so you wouldn't see that shoe on the silhouette or something.
So often, ballet dancers of a different skin tone, they would have to powder or use different colours to cover up the pink ballet shoes. But they would, like, people were still doing it. Only over the past few years have there been companies that have brought out different tones. But also then, like, discussions around that at the time were like, I remember when I was younger, being in a dance school back in Derby. And I remember doing a show and it was like, oh, everyone needs to wear this colour tights, this, that and the other. And I was like one of very few black girls in the area, and there was no other person of my colour in the dance team, and they wanted skin tone tights. I could not get skin, like that did not exist. And so I used to, and I remember thinking about it, but it was just normalised, but I used to go in on these like really pink tights.
Right.
And it just felt so, I just remember feeling really like embarrassed and stupid about it. And so, and I think a lot of people had this feeling when like Boots or Wilko's, when we had Wilko's, brought out the skin tone plasters. It was like, oh my gosh, like no one can see this. And it's such a little thing, but it just then, I got thinking about it in our sector and like what would be a useful thing. And a very long-winded story.
No, it's really insightful.
But yeah.
So is that request also coming from the production team or the director? Do they want to see tape-on athletes or dancers, or is it?
It's interesting.
Yeah. What's the?
Depends on the dynamic of the team.
Right.
More often than not, it's a manager or director or someone who's watching the show and its entity going, this is where I want my focus to be. I don't want to be able to see that you've got an injury, but not at the detriment of the person just because they've got a vision.
Yeah.
That then performer will then go, oh, have you got something to cover up?
Yeah.
Or they'll do it because they don't want people to make a thing of the fact they've got an injury.
Yes.
Or they've got an audition and they're like, I don't want to draw too much attention to this, and I can cover it up, or I can make it look minor if it's not like in your face. And then that sometimes causes a tricky dynamic where it's, I can't cover it up, I've got to do it anyway, but I feel more confident with the tape on, or I feel more secure with it on, or I understand my exercises when I've got it on. And it's then like, how can we as practitioners make that person feel more aware, more confident, more capable? Obviously, if they're high risk and taping or then you just don't do it. But where they're borderline, or you know, that's going to give you an extra 10, 15, 20% of performance, it's worthwhile. And that's where it's coming from, more the patient or a conversation between their manager that we were trying to negate, because then we were able to go, hey manager, they can do the show, but they have to have the tape on, and that's in your medical letter, and they will then not argue it.
It's funny because we put the extra shades live a couple of days ago, I think, and on the first day with an order from a film production company. Who was it, Ben? Come on. I know this is not it's on the pod. Paramount? No, Pinewood Studios there, and
Wicked.
They're filming. What are they filming at the moment? Did you guess that? Avengers or something like that. So I was like, so it's cool,
Like, it matters. And it's like, look, it's not that we can't cope without, it's just that we cope better. And I think patient choice is really, really important. And I just like, and I say this every time, but I cannot explain the first week when you launched the first brown tapes, the reaction. I wish I had a camera in my treatment room.
We wish you had a camera.
I wish, just going back, because like, it was just really beautiful. Like, I had cheers in the room. I had tears in the room. Wild. I had,
and honestly, that's not something I could relate to.
It just, it's such a little thing, but it was like people were really pleased about it. And even people that I come across now who maybe haven't seen it, or people just applaud it. And it's quite nice to see.
And then, like rightly you said in email and phone conversations, we're not there yet. Like, we've got 3 shades.
Look, there's always progress to be made. I think any form of step is a good step. I think there is room for development and ideas, and I think the more that it creates discussion, the better. And like, knowing that there's room to add, to develop, to expand is only a good thing. And
like, we've only done it with kinesiology tape. The original discussion started with British gymnastics and rigid tapes. So your strapping tapes, that comes in a tan. I'm guessing that was presumably for skin tone once upon a time. And white cotton. And they're faced a very similar scenario in which they're going to perform, and they will choose the tan or the white, in which they're then staining it. Sometimes it's like,
and this is that staining principle is the same thing as the ballet shoes. It's that background, or like, I could transfer it into so many different performance sectors. Like, I know And I haven't spoken to, per se, a powerlifter or like bodybuilding competitions, but they tan, don't they?
Yeah,
They tan like insanely for that, and they have to look a certain way. So you then think like, what's the closest to the tan colour, or like, what would they opt for?
Yeah, terracotta probably.
Yeah, and look, you can't get every single one perfect. It's just having something close, isn't it? And also giving a wider appreciation for the fact that like we are all a little bit different, and where we can get closer to catering to the difference is a great thing.
Absolutely. We skipped your whole career.
Your whole life. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. Let's get just about the product. But where did you start? I know we spoke about you grew up in Derby.
Yes, Derby, little Derby.
Dancing. What led you to physiotherapy?
So grew up in Derby. Kind of, my parents work in the medical field, so both nurses. Okay. It was always like, go and do something like medical. It's secure. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. It's too much. But I always I was quite an active person, netball, dancing, I liked running, things like that. And it just was I think a placement. I'd done a placement at my secondary school looking at teaching, and I really enjoyed that. And then I just was like, what's medical that brings in sport? Yeah. Was it even Google at the time? Search it. And then I was like, okay, physio, maybe interesting. Yeah. And I went to shadow. And it's funny how these people will never really know what they've done for you. But I went to shadow someone at a physio clinic in Derby, and I was only there for a couple hours. But I was like, this is amazing. Really, I was like, how has he worked out what that person is 5-10 minutes into the appointment? Oh yeah, it's probably this. This is what you need to do. I was like, and I just thought, what kind of wizardry is this? And I was like, you know what? I've never been this is what I want to do and this is my 10-year plan person. But I just thought, let me explore this and let me go down that line. And if I like it, great. And if I don't, I will work out an alternative. And it just ended up being the thing that really worked. And I went to Manchester to study physio, Manchester Met Uni, sorry, scrape that. Manchester Met Uni. They were brilliant. They were really, really supportive. I had a great time there, and then was doing sports massage on events on the side, and then finished, got into an NHS role in Manchester. Whilst working private, I kind of tend to do a lot of things at the same time.
Would you advise that for somebody kind of going down a similar route?
I'd say regardless, if you get your degree in physio, you want to get wide experience in it, because some of the things that I see now in clinic, if I hadn't had my time, you have your placements, but if I hadn't had my time in the NHS, I maybe would miss things. Gotcha. So where the NHS, you see a completely different demographic of people. It's probably quite a lot of chronic pain. You won't see as much acute. I needed it. And so I did, I think, everyone was always saying spend 2 years doing rotations. I did 8 months, but I did the private work alongside it, and I landed in the departments that I really wanted to work in. North Manchester and Oldham Hospital were great with me. I did MSK and orthopedics and had a great time doing it. Just my heart wasn't there by the time I got to orthopedics. And then the private world opened up. Right. And I got a really cool opportunity to come into the dance performance sector in London.
Because you mentioned you didn't even know that existed.
I didn't have a clue.
No.
When I applied for uni, it's funny because everyone was like, don't tell them in the interview that you want to do sports physio. You've got to
they still say that now, I think,
And I was like, I knew it's what I want to do. I was like, I'm going to go and support a sports team, and that is probably what I'm going to do. And I was gunning for that. I kept it quite years. And then when I came into the course, I was like, there's loads more to physio. Wow, neurophysio is really interesting, or respiratory is actually really interesting. And I kept an open mind. But I then got my sports massage degree, qualification, and I was still trying to do it. At no point had I considered that dance or performance was a sector, even though I danced on the side. That was just my little, my passion project that I wanted to keep in mind. I never really wanted to go into dance training. I just wanted to dance. But then when the opportunity was you could go into that sector, and I was like, well, that means I can see more of it. And then the doors opened up, and I moved to London on a temporary job to work on High Street, which was wild, working in a clinic, but also serving West End shows like Wicked, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I just was like,
wow,
get all my experience in. Get it.
So what, you were like early 20s at the time?
I was about 22, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So the first person comes in from the Wicked cast. It wasn't like the lead or anything, was it? And you...
Well, Wicked set up at the time, I don't know if they still do it like this, but I had 1 or 2 times a week where I'd go on site to the show.
Okay.
So between their double show day or before their double shows, I'd be there, I'd get free treatment sessions in for priority people, and then the clinic would serve anyone else from the show that needed it. So any injury could walk through the door, really.
So what would those treatments be like between show? Is it just a...
Between show, strapping.
Get them back out.
Taping, strapping, should they be on show, any like really new acute things. Sometimes just maintenance, like costumes. Some of the like headdresses and like really tight costumes like could cause neck pain or just tightness coming up or a restriction of movement. So it's essentially optimizing for show or having discussions, because at the time also the treatment room for Wicked, because they didn't have space, the treatment room was the company manager's office.
Right, yeah.
So it'd be like boot the manager out so you could do treatment, or they'd be present so that discussions could happen. And it'd be free sessions doing that. And then in clinic, it could be anything to do with like they're off show, they've, I don't know, rolled their ankle. Can we get it better? Can we do the like exercise and rehab around it? Can we do the hands-on and things like that? Yeah. And then for anyone on a show, which it still works like this, you do the treatment session, but then with any session, you'd have to do a letter to the company manager to say, this is what I've seen them for, this is how they're presenting, these are my recommendations for when they should come back, and this is what they can do in show. And for some people, it's then going, can they do show, but they've just got to modify from certain movements? Do they have to modify their track? Can they only do a single show day? Like the layers of making sure that they are supported to get that injury right, but don't re-injure in doing so.
So there's big parallels between that and elite sport.
Yeah,
it's elite performance, isn't it, ultimately? 100%. So
it's like pretty much exactly the same. I'd say the main difference, and again, depending on what level of sport you are, is just not having the team all on site. Yeah. So where, let's say with a big elite football team, you'd have sports scientist, doctor, physio, like they're there with you. Yeah. We're a bit more external, unless a show, I think the most a show would have massage therapist, physio on site. And then they maybe have a movement director, but that's more kind of creative led. Shows typically have a doctor. No. Do they have doctors they can reach out to? Yes. Not quite as much of a layered support team, but same kind of idea.
So Harley Street, Wicked,
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That was interesting.
Oh, okay.
Fat suits. Imagine like you're doing a track that is difficult and you're dancing anyway, but you've got to be in a fat suit. Yeah. Or you've got to have like really heavy shoes on, or just wild things are brought in performance. So the stuff that I would see in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory are quite different to what came up in Wicked.
I doubt very much the performer has much influence in that costume. Or is the costume just arrive and they're like, right, you've got to perform in this? Or is it a collaborative approach? Is it like, there's no chance I'm doing that move wearing that?
Yeah, like, I think for bigger shows, they'll already have the structure, the image, or the show will have ran before. So like, let's say there's Wicked in town and there's Wicked on tour. Wicked's not always touring, but when it tours again, it will probably run how it has, and they're quite strict with how the show is. So their costume and setup will be the same. You'll probably have, I don't know, you might be able to talk a little bit into like hairstyles, or I don't know if there's a specific footwear thing, but otherwise it's the same. If it's a smaller show or like a new musical. So I worked on The Drifters, which was Wicked. Worked on The Drifters, and that was a new musical. There was a lot more discussion in that because it was new, and it was what works for the people who are going to be in the show for the time that we get this up. There's still a vision, but there's a bit of, you know what, that doesn't work, so we might need to do this. And just the scale of the show and whether it's ran before will usually dictate that.
So you spoke about like Warhorse. Like, when have we seen that? Like,
Warhorse was like my perspective changer.
Right, okay.
Warhorse, I toured with them. It was my first touring show. It came at a time where I didn't really know what city I wanted to live. And then I got an opportunity where I could tour with a show working in the arts, but I'd get a month in every city that we went to. Yeah. Brilliant. Because a lot of tours are week to week. Right. So you get a month, a week to settle, 2 weeks to explore and do your thing, a week to prep to go to the next place. And we went we came to Cardiff, we went to Edinburgh, we kind of went to Bristol. Like, we went to good places, so it's good. But when I went into the show, I knew roughly about it. I'd never seen it before. I knew it was puppetry. Never worked with puppetry, but worked with a few puppeteers before, but never on that scale. And I didn't know the show. So...
Oh, right. Wow.
I came into it and would watch the rehearsal. I think I missed like half the rehearsal period, to be fair. I came into it and had some time watching rehearsals, but then we were off.
Yeah.
And we started in Canterbury, and I remember those first few months I was like, I don't feel too busy.
Right, okay, and then...
And then I was like, what can I be doing? Like, one, how much time can I spend around the cast that I'm treating? Because there's that dynamic. How many times should I watch the show?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to learn? Getting used to the fact there's like a puppet technician. What does he do? What's his job? And I'm the only medical person there on site.
Right.
And how I had a lot of flexibility. Like, when do I do the appointments? Because there was no structure. And I'd do the appointments in a day whilst everyone else was off. And then the show would be on and I'd be off. And sometimes I'd watch the show. But I went into that show because I didn't know it, and also because I think there weren't many shows at the time that had touring physios. Cirque did, and Wicked did to a degree, but like not much. And I think Warhorse had ran before, but not for a while, so I didn't have a handover.
But then you've also got the performers who don't have an expectation of that support.
Yes.
So they're not looking for it.
And we have all the screening information, like we'll speak to them before they come in so we know their backgrounds, but I didn't know what was going to happen.
No.
So we trot along and it's like going okay, and then it's probably like 4 or 5 months in, I'm like, whoa, now the injuries are here.
Yeah.
And I've seen by the time it gets busy, I go, right, I understand the show now, and I completely understand why this has happened. But I then was like, it's a bit too late. Like, I can do my job here, but this doesn't work that way. And unless I have enough time to learn the show, risk assess it, figure out what's likely to happen, put in the injury risk reduction, workshop, strength training, etc. I could have got ahead of this.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to do as we went round, which was quite nice, was like, we had our kit, but you want a gym to resistance train and things, and we didn't really have that set up. But then I was like, right, when we go to a new venue, I'm just going to reach out to the local gym, set up like discounts for people so people can go and gym train. But I was learning. And I think what I learned from that first tour is it's really interesting being on a tour with a big group. I learned a lot about injury trends.
Yeah.
I learned the benefit from watching a show again, and looking at...
to look at those movement patterns, the demands on the athlete.
Like, how do you prep a person for being inside a horse that they can't see, doing wild puppeteering with their hands, and also having a person on top of the puppet?
Yeah.
Like, how do you prep? That's not normal.
You do watch Warhorse and you forget this puppetry.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, you don't even think there's people in the... So,
even down to like, and this was an element that I was looking at the time, but how they're using their voices.
Yeah.
Like, they're making the horse sounds. That is not like someone with they're making the sounds, and they have learned and spent time working out how to do that. It's brilliant.
That's not what led you into vocal massage, was it?
No.
It wasn't nailing sounds, was it?
Can you imagine? I'd known a little bit about it, but I think the big thing with Warhorse was I did that leg. I feel that I managed it quite well, but there were a load of things that I would have done differently. But the beauty was I did 1.5 years, and then I decided and got an opportunity to come back to London, but the next cast was coming in, and I was like, I'm going to give you what I didn't have.
Yes.
So I was like, we are doing workshops. I'm going to tell you the trends that come up. If you're going into a certain role, I'm going to tell you what your priorities to train are, and I want you to know what's not normal. Like, because a lot of performers would just put up with injuries, or they go, I should feel like this, or don't complain because you're new to the job. And just tell them how to utilize physio. So at least they had the stepping stone, and the physio after me had a booklet that I put together on this is what's going to happen.
So do the performers, before they get the role or know they're in the running for the role, do they get like a 8-week build up to strength train to... No.
I'd say the performance industry, I don't know if it happens so much for sport, but they're very last minute people. Some people are better than others, but sometimes, like a show that I will not name, big show, I remember when it was coming to town, I was reached out to in advance. They'd thought about it, And it was probably like 3 or 4 months in advance. Brilliant. They're probably still casting and things like that. They didn't select the physio for that show until maybe a week before the rehearsal started. But then you ask them a week before, they're not going to be free until weeks after. Then you've done your rehearsal period. Like, you've missed the boat. You can still do a good job, but where an ideal structure would be to figure out, once they're cast, what they're cast for, and learn, get the content of the show and watch the rehearsals, because that's where the work is important.
I'm trying to think of a parallel in sport, and I can't think. It'd be like you're a general football player, general athlete.
But you've got
for the
pre-season.
next 3 weeks, you're going to play football, or next 3 months, and then you finish playing football for 3 months, and then you're, all right, rugby season now. And then you're a good athlete, and you're going to play all these sports, and that's what the answer is like.
It's wild.
What I think of is maybe gladiators.
Yeah.
Where you come from a general athlete, and then you just put on that show, and you've had no pre-training. I don't know.
You can even people that I'll see in clinic, it's not that they're weak or that they're even injured. They're skilled.
Yes.
But they've got an audition that has come up in 2 days, and they've got to be in a harness. How do you?
Yeah. No.
There's no, and they're working another job. So how do you prep for that?
Yeah.
So the injury risk is in the sector quite high, and the awareness and understanding of it, though it's improving. A lot of people trained in an environment where, there's schools that, I don't know whether they still do, but there's schools at the time that were like, you're not allowed to strength train because it makes you look a certain way.
Yeah, sure.
Or they put the fear of life into people, or they wouldn't have enough energy to go and do the extra because they're so physically active in their training anyway. My boss at the time had done research and worked with some ear, nose and throat specialists and speech and language therapists, and had looked into the concept of what I think we called vocal massage, or is still maybe called vocal massage in some elements. But then comes vocal physiotherapy.
See, I want to know what vocal massage looks like, but I don't want to nominate my neck. Or how does it even work?
I think the old perspective of it, old school, or some people would worry about was, you're doing treatment around the neck. That must be like getting strangled. It's not. It shouldn't hurt.
Right.
It's nothing like that. The concept is, our voice is a makeup of air, vocal folds, vibration, and the sound that comes out.
Sure.
Our vocal folds are housed here. What else is here? Loads of muscles. Right. You look at the anatomy, there are loads of tiny muscles around here and here, and around the jaw, around this essentially floating joint, so to say. And these muscles can have a knock-on effect on head positioning, how much this moves. Even the muscles here affect how we breathe. So as physios, where we look at muscles and joints and their influence on joints, why do we not do it here? We learn all of this. We learn the organs here. We skip this for some odd reason. We do the brain. We don't do the jaw, really. And we don't do anything here. It's just so he'd looked into what happens if you stretch or treat a muscle around here. What is the impact of manipulation around here? And how does that correlate with what speech and language therapists are trying to achieve with exercises on sound, and what is an ear, nose and throat doctor looking at when they scope someone and go and look at the vocal folds? What are the conditions around that? And I guess the term that I'm really trying to push, that vocal physio, which is different to vocal massage, there's vocal massage within it where you can do treatment around here and move and treat the tongue, which is essentially a muscle, and get essentially more space locally. But as physios, we've got this skill set where we know about, you can be a respiratory physio. So we know about breathing and the mechanics of breathing and how you can be more efficient with breath, and how maybe if I sat like this all day, it's harder to breathe like this than it is this. We correct our posture. But we know the impact of that. So if your breathing is not efficient, what then happens to your voice? So if I breathe like this, my voice is not going to be as efficient. Or we also know, and we speak to our people a lot about their health and well-being. So what happens when you're high stress or upset? And when we're upset, we tend to speak why are we speaking like that? Because our emotions have a direct effect on what this larynx does, and positioning and sound and tension. So there's the hands-on side. There's the health and well-being and sleep and diet and that consideration. There is the exercise side, which is do day in, day out. How do we get you stronger here and less strong here so you're less rounded? How do we support a good neck position? How do we get more range of motion? And then there's the referral side of it also, where it's like, where do you need someone else? Where maybe haven't you got a check with an ear, nose and throat doctor? Where maybe do you need some psychology input? Where do you need a speech and language therapist because you need to practice on how you're using your voice? Or maybe you need a vocal coach. Like, we're a very small part, vocal physio is a very small part of a bigger team where there is singing coaches, vocal coaches, speech and language therapists, doctors, like the team.
Yeah. So you weren't busy enough just in the MSK. You thought you then put...
I just like dipping my
Yeah.
toes.
So you spoke about the mentor, the doctor, who kind of wanted to develop this concept, this methodology.
Yeah.
And then you took it out to the West End, did you? Or how do you...
So he was already doing it. And I think the clinic also was known for serving the West End because we were kind of performance specialists, and like people would come for their voice, but come for other issues. And then I think in the process of learning about that under that roof, like I was doing a very small amount of it, like on Warhorse, I didn't really bring it in there because I hadn't had practice with it. But then when I was in the clinic more, I'd use it more and I'd learn more about it. And I'd say that since leaving the clinic and working for myself and like collaborating with a number of my colleagues who I used to work with, I think we've got a bit more open-minded about it and gone, wait a minute, like we know more than this, and there's a lot more to transfer. So the approach that a lot of us take now is like, how do we, like, you're coming in as a whole person, so how does the whole body influence the voice? Yes, you've come to me because you maybe can't hit a note or you're struggling in your endurance, but you also had a history of lower back pain because you get stomach pain. And if your stomach pain isn't managed and your back is really, really...
Sounds like talking about me.
I read your notes.
Yeah.
But it's then like, we're like a little jigsaw. So like, if you're struggling in pain all the time and you're hunched over because of the pain and your back hurts, you're going to be tighter around your back and maybe you're not breathing as efficiently. So if we treat that issue, can you then breathe efficiently and get the voice? It's like figuring out the most relevant points for that person in that task and going, now how do we make your plan? Is it me that needs to assist you with that plan, or is there sort of like, actually you need to go to a gastro specialist because you got to sort out your stomach and stuff?
That's
it's figuring out what
I never
that
thought
is.
It was my guts that stopped me singing.
And it's layered. And like on that, it might be that there's a source to the problem in the same way as like if someone came with a knee issue, we might go, you know what, your knee's hurting, but it's about your hip or it's about your foot. We consider this in the wider picture of the body. And that's how, I guess, as vocal physio, we try and work where someone just doing vocal massage might just get the tension out and not consider the rest of it. You can get all that out and maybe get the voice for a day, but if you've not corrected the problems in lifestyle, it's going to come back. But then there's acknowledgement that not everything is vocal physio. Like there'll be voice cases that just like, that's completely separate.
Gotcha.
So we kind of look at the functional voice influence.
So you've now taken that out on the road and you're supporting vocalists or performers? Or what's the mix now?
Work is quite diverse. So I see a range of like performers, teachers, like word of mouth is powerful. So I get quite a mix into clinic for a mixture of like voice linked presentations, but also like just general injury. I think most of my caseload is like lower limb, back and neck and voice. I see shoulders and wrists, but just less often. The voice stuff can be people prepping for auditions, people in a show trying to maintain, but also now coming into the music industry, which has been great fun because as like having a background in dance, I love music, love it. Can't come into my treatment room without having playlists on. And I think having done a lot in theatre and like there being more recognition for the role of medical support in theatre, music industry don't have it. Or there are people trying, but their schedules are so crazy that they often don't have time to go and see someone. Or they cope until they burn out. And we've heard of so many artists having to cancel their shows because they got ill or they pushed it too much or they need a mental break from performing because maybe they didn't have the support in the first place. And it's then, can we bring this mindset of, well, how do we stop that before we even get there to that environment? And can we teach them that in some cases, you don't have to burn out to keep your show going?
No. So is there more awareness in like, I feel like I've seen like artists like Stormzy. The guy's in peak physical condition Yeah, and sings and performs and's got an appreciation of it. Are you seeing more performers like that, kind of having a great appreciation of the holistic health and how that impacts their performance on stage?
I'd say in the arts sector, performance theatre, yes. In the music industry, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Because I think for some people, they'll go from having nothing, they're just writing in their room, they're putting out their content online, and then they'll blow up.
Yeah.
And there's not enough chance for some of them to go, what about me?
Yeah.
It's get the songs out, do the show, do this. Okay, you've got to be in a meeting, you've got to do promo.
Yeah.
And it's about creating that sometimes, unfortunately, the performer who's literally the reason this person's got a job, they aren't looking after themselves. And they do a brilliant job to their detriment. And sometimes when I get these people and I'll get the phone calls because they've got a big show coming up and they're not sure if they can do it, or because something's gone wrong, and you get them one-on-one and you talk to them, they want to make time for themselves, but they just don't know how to. Or because their life is so different and it's moving at like 100 miles per hour, they're like, how, like, I've not had a chance to speak to anyone about me. I've maybe... They always want to. There's just often a time or a how or an essence of like they've forgotten what they need for them.
Yeah. They're a product to like their own success, aren't they? Yeah. And with that comes commercialism, doesn't it? And it's just like
and they kind of lose themselves sometimes.
Yeah, I can believe that.
But the more time, and it's really lovely seeing like and being able to work in that space, the more time that you get with some of these people, the more they go, you know what, actually I want this, and actually this show's not going to happen unless I do this.
I bet you get those calls and you're like, wow, it's fun. And then you get into their world, and then have you ever had that kind of moment where you're treating a working artist and you're like kind of feeling like an imposter? I'm not saying you.
I get it all the time.
Do you get imposter syndrome? Yeah.
I get it all the time. I get it sometimes just working in clinic, but like I think in the music industry, yes, but I think what I appreciate about the realms of that work is I'm just meeting another person. Yes, they've done amazing things, and I always I'm in awe of their creativity or like their artistry, but I'm just meeting another person.
Is there that semi-surreal moment when you've treated somebody on a bench and then 2 hours later you're watching them and they're up on stage in front of 50,000 people, whatever it may be?
It's very easy to forget.
Yeah.
It's very easy to forget. And like, I've had it, I've done it a few times earlier this year where I've treated the person, like I'm very grateful for it and I know the scale of what they're going to do, but nothing compares to putting yourself in the crowd and like just, I love people watching. Yeah. But just being in the crowd and seeing the gigs are a really great place to be, as it is in the theatre, but I think the theatre is a bit more reserved and everyone like holds themselves in a certain way, or like you have to be quiet because they're performing. In a gigs, everyone lets loose. The happiness, the emotion, the crying, the like person who's gone with their parents, the like all the relationships that are in that room, they're for that one person on stage or the band on stage. And having had maybe a few hours earlier one-on-one time with that person where they're maybe struggling with something or they're really nervous about show or don't think they're capable, and they get up on stage and do that.
And you
and
play
that's
the
the influence they're having. It's, you can't compare to it.
I bet. So have you ever been like, your backing dancer's looking a bit dodgy? Any chance? Can I? Nobody would notice. It's a simple move. I've got this.
I would love to. I don't think I'd dare.
No,
I think I think every physio would have also thought. I think the most time that had ever happened, and it would never like in true form happen, but like when I worked on Warhorse or I worked on Harry Potter in town, like because of the amount that I'd watched the show, I'd find myself watching it and like I knew the words. Yeah. Like I can sub in, I can do it. I'd definitely freeze. But like you could catch yourself going like, oh, I actually know what I can't do that role, but I know what you're doing for your role. Like rehearsing
I think that's
the line.
Everybody watches Strictly Come Dancing.
They'll
feel the same, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, if anybody hasn't seen it, and you talk about the music in the changing room, or music comes into the music, you've got to see the Hamza video.
Please.
Check out Jen's
I'm
social.
not big on TikTok, but
check it out.
It was one of the first proper TikToks that I put out, and I didn't even intend for it to be a TikTok. Hamza, if he's watching this, when he came into my room for physio, every time we'd have a giggle, but he has moves for days, as do a lot of them. But we just started doing funny videos when he came in. And there's a nice little reel on TikTok of all his entrances to physio. That was every session. It's a beautiful place to be, Strictly.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'd say of all the shows that I've worked on, if I ever got the opportunity to flip and be in a show, it'd be Strictly.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, as a dancer or contestant?
Contestant.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't be a dancer on that show.
Okay.
I have no ballroom experience while working on it.
You couldn't choose your dancer, though, could you?
If I got
If you had
to...
No,
I'm not
go
vocalise that. What I can very confidently say is they are
all amazing.
They're brilliant. They're really passionate people. They care, and the skill that it takes to be a professional dancer and a professional teacher. Yeah. I can't put words on that. But if I got to choose to do any, me and my colleague Daryl often joke about it. We're like, how do you think it would go if we both learned how to do these dances fully? Like we had the whole season and it was almost crew and physios instead of contestants. That'd be great. I'd be here for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone would watch, but
I don't know. I think there's a behind this because they do like the midweek kind of show, don't they?
Yeah, we could do that maybe. I don't know with what time, but I'd love to. Imagine blocking your schedule completely. No work. You've just got this one aim.
For 6 months or something. Oh, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
It would be... Yeah. I don't know how they do it. I do in respect, but mentally, it's such a challenge. You've cast your life aside for this. But the improvement that they, we'll often watch people when they're just getting to meet their partners or they'll have, in their first weeks, they'll have rehearsals. So they're just learning, people don't have a clue unless they've got a bit of a background of when they were younger doing bits. But it's funny to try and guess they'll probably do well. They're maybe going to get injured. Yeah. They'll struggle with this. I always get it wrong.
That's really surprising.
I could get it right on an injury or presentation viewpoint, but the people that improve the most. Yeah.
I don't know how you watch it and how do they juggle their lives, their family life, their working life, and do the dancing as well. All I put it down to is they're just high achievers. Just switch on and they commit.
There's some people that come into the show and they cancel everything and they're in rehearsals. There's the people that have their families or little kids to look after. There's the people also who keep everything else going and do the show.
That's mad.
But it's also very inspiring to be a part of, because when you watch people doing that to that degree, and you just kind of go, why am I worrying about this little thing that maybe has affected my week when they've achieved this in a week and made the mindset is beyond.
So we've just launched our Unstoppable campaign, hero video. We've got 4 athletes in it, and the message we really want to communicate to people is about being unstoppable, but being over a prolonged time and being consistent. So it's the people who are doing the work when it's not easy, when you've still got to get the kids to bed first before you can train, when you've still got to juggle the job, or you've got to decline that kind of drinks out with your friends. That's kind of where we feel that as TAPE we sit, is supporting people on that journey. So rather than the hardcore marketing, you're unstoppable, you're going to smash through these walls.
Yeah.
It's about consistency over time.
Yeah.
And I know we discussed doing about to be unstoppable, you've also got to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
How have you seen unstoppable being played out with your kind of performances or athletes or even yourself? That'd be really cool to know.
What does unstoppable mean to me? I think, like you said, a lot of people would hear that word, and I certainly hear it. And the first thing I think is doing everything, getting the best results, giving everything to get everything. But I think a big part of what I've learned, and also what I try and share in the treatment room, is that there are hurdles, there are barriers. Sometimes you're putting a lot of energy into things and a random injury happens, or you get unwell, and it does feel like you stop that momentum. And it's not that you stop and you can't achieve your goals. It's just that sometimes we have to take those steps back, but they are part of our steps forward. Yes. And I think I think reflection time and almost that like self-kindness and acknowledgement of the journey that you've had is really important in creating that unstoppable, I can take steps forward.
Yeah.
I find that hard to word, but hopefully that came across. Knowing that actually sometimes stopping does not mean stopping isn't a bad thing.
No, yeah, that's true, isn't it? Yeah, you need that kind of reflection.
Yeah.
Is your kind of career like that at the moment? Like you've driven really hard, and now you're looking at different directions and opportunities for yourself?
In terms of my career at the moment, I think I do always put a lot of energy into things. I think by nature and just what I've grown up around, I'm kind of like, what can I do next? Yeah. What's the next biggest thing? But I am mindful of that. It takes a lot of energy to do that, and I can't do all my ideas at the same time. And it's just taking a step back and going, what's actually important to me? Yeah. What will make my week a better week? What will keep me inspired and like keep that spark that I get when I treat someone or make a difference and go, oh, you know what? I'm really pleased I did that. What keeps that there, allowing me to move forward with that? And I feel that coming back to that is the only reason that I've done a lot of things that I've done. I'll get to the end of the year or get to the start of the year. I'm not a resolution person, but I will write out what do I want to do or see this year. And doing that gives me the drive forward to go, you know what, this is what I've done. Yeah. These are the things I'd like to see for myself.
Are you good at celebrating success?
I try to be, yeah. I think sometimes I celebrate and then I forget. And I'll get into a like different thing, and I'll be like, I haven't even done anything this year, and then I'll be like, wait a minute. Yeah. So I do have to remind myself. I think writing, journaling is really important. Speaking to people. Got a really nice collective of supportive work colleagues and friends who that definitely help me celebrate myself. So yeah.
Right. Tape related questions. Tape. The reason why you're here. No, it's not. But so what part does tape play in, I suppose, your work in MSK in performance physiotherapy?
So what part does tape play? So I guess I use taping a lot. I think it is brilliant for retraining perspective and awareness. I think where's nice to bring it into play is where someone's maybe come in with an injury, but they are learning how to train in a different way. Maybe they're learning how to balance on one leg or how to rotate their shoulder in a certain position. And we've not taped the injury up, but we've taped for feedback so they can feel where they should feel the muscle, or they can feel where they should have feedback in the foot. And I find that quite beneficial. And the response I get back is after a few days when they've started a new program where they might have otherwise been a bit confused about what they were doing, they've had something there to be like, right, and now I can apply that day to day, and I take the tape off and they can still find it.
It's fine.
And then we've got the other side of it where it is injury alleviating, like it's really good on like shoulder impingement, so front shoulder pain, where like sometimes you've treated it, it feels better, and they've still got this little pinch in the mid-range, and you strap it and they're like, oh, I can move it. And that's really satisfying.
Yeah.
And just to be able to give that person access also and the confidence to go, this is going to go. Because some people come in and they're like, I'm going to have this forever. I'm never going to be able to do tennis again, or I'm not going to be able to swim again. And you give that taste of there's potential for this to go, and it motivates them. And I think it's just a brilliant adjunct to treatment.
Yeah, definitely. And preference in tapes, or do you use a mix of rigid, or is it mainly more flexible kinesiology tapes?
Depending on the injury.
Yeah.
So I'd say, depending on the stage of the injury, I'd say I most often K-tape.
Yeah.
If it's something acute and like I need that restricted and offloaded, I will often use a thermotape, and then if they need a support, do that. I'd say if I was working more like alongside a sports team, which hasn't really been my background of recent, but if I was in that environment where I see them off pitch or like in that environment where they've got to get going, I'd probably use more firm. But because I often see people in clinical where they maybe are going to dance, but they can modify, I can get away with using more flexible tape because I know they're going to have time to do their training to adjunct. So yeah, I'd say the things that I firm tape most often for is like foot posture, arch of the foot, low die, ankle firm strapping.
Sorry, you mentioned low dye. To those who don't know.
Oh, like taping under the foot so that it gives you a little bit more arch support, and gives you feedback if you're rolling your foot, so maybe you're a bit more flat-footed. It's quite a nice one to check if anyone might need like a temporary insole. I don't preach like insoles are good, they're not a fix. I think there's loads of foot exercises you can do for it, but sometimes if you've got someone that's got quite a marked habit, or they're trying to run, they're doing a marathon, they've got the wrong footwear, sometimes you get quite a nice, it's like walking on a cushion. Tape it, it lifts the foot, they can do their exercise better, and then I might get them a temporary support too. That's quite a good one. Right. But I'd say ankles, I'm most often firm tape.
Yeah.
And then K-tape can be anything from feet, knees, hips, shoulders, but like anywhere. Anywhere. I'd say the only place recently I haven't had K-taped would be like hands. Yeah. But you can do that. There's quite a lot you could do there. Yeah.
So you spoke about using tape for rehabilitation or injury assessment. Do you also use it as a preventative measure at all? Yeah.
I think even preventative and to facilitate. So I think because it has a really good role in awareness or influence in posture and position, depending on where you use it, it can be good to teach.
Yeah.
Teach awareness, teach about muscles and their action, to improve performance. So if we're trying to train a certain region but they can't quite understand it and you've taped and for feedback.
So what would be an example?
Oh, okay. Posture tapes feels like quite an obvious one for me because I use that quite a lot. I use that in the vocal physio but also in general.
Oh, okay.
So let's say I'm really front strong, tight in my pecs, but I tend to train and I'm like, I don't know, doing overhead press in this position, and I've just got this pattern in a lot of my behaviours. What I might do is open tape the shoulders and tape down the extensors of the back so it feels like I've got to pull into a bit more of an upright spine. It's not going to fix me there, but it's going to give me a reminder if I'm sitting like this all day. I use it sometimes for my office workers who are sat like this all day, and they're so into their work that they just they maybe forget to do their exercise. But sometimes having the tape there will be enough for them to go, oh yeah, like they'll adjust and then they might remember their exercises. But that can sometimes be the difference between whether they sit all day and have loads of lower back pain at the end of the day, or they feel to adjust or need to shuffle and open up their shoulders because the tape is there. So there are loads of different ways that you can apply it before there is even a problem to always teach people a bit more about their body, I guess.
Like that goes back to the video when you said about Wicked and Warhouse. Training people.
I think that's how it should be. I think, and I say this a lot, like we grow up in a body that is constantly changing. We maybe know a lot about our body at one point of our lives, but then it will change. And like people have babies or like they change sports, and with that our body changes. And there's no kind of realm where we're automatically told about our body unless we go to the doctor about something or we go to the dentist. And I'll use a dentist example because how many people would be able to tell them, like if you went to a dentist, they kind of say, your teeth are okay or they're not, and you have a procedure. But if I asked you about your teeth, you would not be able to tell me about specifically what they...
I couldn't tell you how many I've got.
So it's that principle, but in body. Some people come in, they don't know about their body, but I work with bodies, so I know a lot about body patterns, and we're in a very privileged position to be able to teach someone about themselves. Right. And so if you're able to do that before problems arise, you live a better life, right?
Yeah. There's your hook, Hicks. Tape for a better life. Thanks so much. Well, coming to SPORTTAPE HQ is obviously the highlight of the year.
Yeah.
And it's downhill from here. But what's second?
What is next? Coming into May. I've got a bit of a break coming up, so that's welcomed. But then we come very shortly into Strictly season again. Oh, cool. It starts a lot earlier than most people think. Right. So there's a lot of prep that we'll be doing there. I'm working with prehab on that, so that's great. I've got a few workshops around voice, and me and my colleague Lucy Rayner are going to get back to editing an article that we've been working on for vocal physio. We had a period of waiting on feedback, but I want to get that published or just out in the world in some capacity. And it's my 10th year of being a physio, so we're hoping
get a badge.
A banner. I'm just trying to switch things up a little bit, so we're going to see what the next few months bring. And I'll leave a little cliffhanger on that. But I'm bobbling about in London, so
Yeah, no, because I think on that note, like the people we've had sat on this sofa, the yellow sofa,
it's a great sofa.
they've actually trained like you have, MSK, NHS, and then they've gone and found their path, and they haven't necessarily stuck to like conventional routes to kind of find where they want to be. Like Sophie's now from Run Free Rehab. She was on the other day, and how she'd found a passion for running, and she's weaved it in there. You've done the same with dance, or Aidan had also done with boxing.
Yeah,
It's amazing where it can take you. Like if I did my A-levels, I wanted to be a physio, and then I messed
then
up
you
my
created
A-levels.
this.
And then yeah. So, but yeah, what a
Sometimes you
great
can't
path.
plan.
No. But I think it's a fantastic skill. I think the people in the industry are genuinely lovely because they care for people.
Yeah.
And I think the access that you're now using to get you to these places and to be stood behind the scenes or in front of those stages is amazing.
Sometimes
Yeah, I can't wait to see follow your socials and see where you go
There's
next.
more ideas up here waiting to be unleashed, so we'll see what happens.
Cool, amazing. Thank you for your time. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.